So as we welcome Rough Riders, Ticats, Stampeders alum Marshall Hamilton to the bunker. Good day, Marshall.
Good day. Happy belated Thanksgiving.
Same to you. Lots to be thankful for, obviously.
Obviously.
Where do you want to start today?
Well, just random. I'm one of our texters, or whatever you call it, that wrote on the screens, asked for our comments on Bo Levi Mitchell's halftime comments. And my comment off the air before, and I'll repeat it now, was I thought it was really childish, and I think he should be fined for it. And for those of you that didn't see the clip, he was basically saying, if not saying outright, he was certainly implying that the referees were making calls against Calgary on purpose to favor the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And one, I didn't see it that way, and it's not because I'm a Saskatchewan Roughrider fan. It's because I'm an objective football viewer and former player. And I just thought, even if it was true, it was unwarranted and certainly not something that the leader of a football team should say. And if I'm Randy Ambrosie in the league, I'm seriously looking at fining him for what he said, because he was implying that the league goes out of its way to favor one team over another, which I don't believe for 1 second.
Nor do I. And of course, a little further on that interview, because the Stampeders D lineman Cashier got kicked out of the game for twisting Cody Fajardo's ankle, which was very clearly shown on video.
Yep.
And Bo said they're doing the exact same thing to him.
I didn't see any evidence of that. Now, There's no doubt, in the game of football, especially for other positions like running backs, where you get to, fall into piles with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people in it. Generally, quarterbacks, when they're tackled, it's usually 1 or 2 people in it. And it's easier to see somebody doing something, funky underneath the pile with a small pile than it is with a big pile. But I've watched every game that Bo Levi Mitchell's played. I have not seen anybody twisting his ankles. I certainly didn't see anybody doing that from Saskatchewan in the game this week. So, I just think he was heated at the time and said some things that he probably regrets right now. And hopefully he regrets that, because he gets lighter in the pocket later this week.
Yet on the flip side, you watched the same game. Ed Gainey gets right in the camera after a review, which the Riders came out on the wrong side of. It was the fumble. And Ed Gainey basically said, come on, CFL, you can't cheat us out of this, blank. So he's accusing the CFL Command Center of cheating him. So here's the Riders, Ed Gainey, accusing the league of the exact same thing Bo Levi Mitchell was.
Yeah, and I think he should be fined for that as well.
Yeah, they both should, yeah.
I generally speaking, human nature is, whenever there's a challenge, the referee or one of the coaches throws a challenge flag and it goes up into the booth for a review, there is nobody on either team that will, let's put it this way, neither team's going to agree with whatever the call is. You're going to have one team says, well, that was obviously this, and the other one's going to say, well, it was obviously that. That's because that's your bias. That's the way you want it to go, because that's the way that you want your momentum of your team to go. So whenever there's one of those things that doesn't go your way, the right thing to do is to say, listen, I don't agree with the call. You say it to yourself, but let's use that as fuel to play the next play or the rest of this quarter. You don't do it by venting in front of a camera. And both fortunately and unfortunately, cameras are everywhere. And now more and more with mic'd up games and things like that, we're going to hear what people say. Well, you got to watch what you say. If you're saying something derogatory about the league, derogatory about your employer, you should be fined or disciplined.
And before I get to the poll question, because it relates to all of this, last night, Monday Night Football, here's a game where the officiating literally led to the outcome of the game. Right? Lions D lineman Flowers gets called twice for illegal hands to the face, and video showed he didn't have his hands anywhere near the guy's face guard.
Well, he had it near, but he didn't have it on the face
not
guard.
in. It wasn't the penalty that was called.
It looked like he was holding on to the jersey and the inside of the collar of the shoulder pad, and he was using that to kind of leverage himself. And it might have been pushing on the chin of the guard that was or tackle that was covering him, but he wasn't touching the face mask. But I could see how the referee, without aid of review, would think that he was pushing on the face mask because the guy's head was being pushed back. But that may be one of those things where the commissioner of the league comes out within the next couple of days and says, we're going to look more closely at this. This either is allowed or this is not allowed. And if it's not allowed, it's going to be lumped in with all of the other calls that are hands to the face. Hands to the jaw is going to be the same as hands to the face. I'm not saying that that's what they'll do, but I'm sure they'll look at it and decide, here's how we're going to officiate this going forward.
No, and you know what? There will probably be a letter come out that says, we blew the call. Because that's what they do now. And I was listening to ESPN radio on the way in here. It was the Levitard show, and they said that just fuels the fire and gets the coaches even more upset. I think it's the highest level of integrity that the league will say, we screwed up, we're sorry.
I think it's the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. But the point is, and then people say, don't apologize, just get better. Well, there's always going to be mistakes. Always, because it's humans. And this is what's led to my poll question. You're already disagreeing with me, I can tell.
No.
The Capital Auto Mall Universal Collision Center poll question is this. Is it fair to expect game officials to be perfect? And the reason I put that poll up was I tweeted this morning, coaches, players, fans, media, all expect officials to be perfect, yet they're nowhere perfect themselves. It's hypocritical for people to demand perfection when they can't achieve perfection. It's impossible because we're humans. All of a sudden, who's liking that on my Twitter feed? CFL officials, CFL head office officials. I see it their way. And the poll question is it fair to expect game officials to be perfect? 86% say no, it's not fair to expect that. And a lot of people are writing in saying, well, just be competent. Well, whose definition of competent are we going to talk about right now? There's going to be, even upon video review, Marshall, they sometimes get it wrong. And let's not go down the road that 10 different people can look at the same clip and see it 10 different ways. You know that yourself.
I know people are being critical of the referees, and I think they missed those 2 calls yesterday. But one, I don't think it's realistic to expect them to get everything right. And when I was shaking my head earlier when you were getting ready to throw your poll question out there is because I do believe the first step to improving is, one, admitting you're wrong. So to send an apology out and saying we blew that call, I think is the right thing to do. And then you use that as an opportunity to learn from that mistake and try to avoid making it again in the future. But, referees are human. I mean, there is no perfect human being. There has never been a perfect human being. And for those people that want to get religious and say, well, there was one, I would say that person disobeyed his parents too.
And he died.
There is no perfect human being ever been on this earth. So if we're expecting our referees to be perfect, I mean, that's unrealistic. The other thing I would comment on is I think the league, especially the NFL more so than the Canadian League, is asking the people in their review booths to only overturn the obvious calls, not to try to second guess a referee who was right there on the field when they made the call. They're going to err on the side of whatever referee called is going to stand unless we see something that was obvious. And I think that's the right approach to do. I don't want to throw away video reviews, but I also don't want to blame every game on referees because very, very few games, and that one last night on Monday Night Football may be one of them, very few games are decided by referees.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.